So again, just to remind you, we're going to cover this last section of your textbook. We're going to focus on nucleic acids. And in the video lectures, I gave you a small introduction. I talk about transcription, replication, transcription, and translation. And I talk about nucleic acids, the components, and the structures of DNA and RNA. These three topics we will talk in much more detail in the future classes. And if you remember the video lecture, I talk about how DNA and proteins can be a powerful tool to study evolution. And if you remember how I talk about how comparing different nucleotides can be used to see how the relationship between different organisms. And in case that we don't have more labs in person, we will go to online labs. And if we have online labs, we will talk about bioinformatics. Mm, and we will be and you will have some sequence of DNA, and you will have to compare and find these phylogenetic relationships. So I create a lot of videos for you, and if you have any doubt, just let me know. But this is something that so if you want to know more about the COVID, about AIDS, about so many diseases, we already have the DNA, and you will be working with this type of sequence. And in this class, I want that you watch the following video. That I know you have heard about archaeology, how you can go to a city like Machu Picchu or some cities in Egypt, and you just dig and can find these structures. And you can also dig and find bones, and you can talk about paleontology. And now there is a new field that is called the paleontology of viruses, and that actually is becoming more and more important now with all these problems that we have with the pandemic. So how do you think that you will find this? Where would you look? Would you look in the bones of these ones, of these guys? Or where would you look for virus from the past? And I'm going to show you a video that talk about that. That is pretty cool. So I will pause the video for you to watch it. And the answer is that how you study those viruses, you study it in living organisms. So they went, the virus was inside, and they described that they went into a living organism. And instead of reproducing, they got stuck in the living organism. Generally, viruses live and infect another living organism. However, in some cases, they got stuck there. They are not harming anybody. They just got stuck. And this is a way to study viruses from the past that they got stuck in different organisms. And there is a fascinating area using bioinformatics that this is something that we will study. So again, I will post the video for you to watch in case that you want it. Okay, now I'm going to solve some of the answers uh, of the questions that we were supposed to do in class. This question is relatively difficult, but if you know some tricks, it can be relatively easy. So here they're asking you about DNA, and they are asking you, okay, what is this? So you have DNA and you have a purine and a pyrimidine that they are connected. So which one are those? And of course, you can go and look in your textbook, and with this you can easily identify which exactly of this, say it is adenine or guanine, this one, and this one, which pyrimidine is. Yeah, so definitely here there is a purine, and here there is a pyrimidine. But if you don't have that and you're in a test, how do you solve this question? So if you don't have this, how do you solve this question? So one thing that you can start doing is trying to, based on the knowledge that you have, to start discarding some of the answers. So for example, if you go here and you see they talk about DNA, and so uracil is not in DNA, in the DNA, so this is definitely wrong. So you discard the first one. But if you remember also the complementarity of the bases, if you remember, I know that A and T, and I remember alt, and the Geico guy, Geico, so is C, G, and C. So these two will be very useful. So for example, C and A are not together. So if you see it's A and T, so this is wrong. T and G, so T is with A, if you see here, and G is with C, so this is wrong. And if you see this one, G and T is, this is wrong. Well, this one, G and C is correct. So the answer here, just discarding all the other ones, it will be B. Just using the complementarity. So you don't need to know all these things. You can just, by complementarity, you can start answering this question. So as I said, I use this complementarity of bases, A and T and G and C, and I discard these ones. And the only one that it was right, it was B. So this is the answer. And you can review, go back and review this question. It looks very difficult, but it's not difficult at all if you know some tricks to solve it. Now I'm going to show you another one that also seems to be a little bit tricky. So again, here you have a double-stranded DNA, and you have 120 purines and 120 pyrimidines. And if you have this table, it will be very easy, but in case that you're in a test and you don't have this, so you can use the different mnemonics that I gave you, or you can play with that. In this case, if you remember the complementarity, this can be also a very easy tool to solve this question. So first thing, what I would do is discard. And again, in the same way that we did last time, here we talk about DNA. So as DNA here, we are talking about a molecule at the double helix. Uracil is not, cannot be one of the molecules, and cannot be one of the nucleotides. So this is wrong. So we discard the first one. Now we have the other four ones. And how we discard the other four ones? So you have purines and pyrimidines, and when you have cytosine, cytosine, it always attached to the purine that it will be the G, guanine. And if you remember all this, you can use it if it's useful for you. But so C will never go with T, so this is wrong. A will never go with C, so this is wrong. G will never go with T, so this is wrong. On the other hand, T and A, as we saw here, is correct. So this will be the purine, and this will be the pyrimidine. So the answer will be B. All of these ones are wrong. This one is the correct one. And again, if this worked for you, you can use it as a tool. It's not for all, it can help you with some questions, but not with all of them. Okay, this one is also very easy. The four different nucleotide parts called bases are made of, and we answer one that it was very similar. So again, it's all of the above. You can think that DNA has a great library of information that exists to do only one thing. And so if you remember the video lecture, you can discard one of these ones. Okay, now that you discard some of them, this one was the answer, D, the direct building of protein molecules. So if you remember, we have these three processes: replication, transcription, and translation. This is why we have DNA to produce proteins. So things about the brain definitely no. To store data, no. build other double helix models of information. The the DNA definitely goes through replication, but this is not the main function of the DNA. That is to have information to produce proteins. And so the best answer here, it will be D. And here, DNA is made of change of four smaller molecules called nucleotides. So that one is also very easy. It was just filling again this table that we already answered in the previous. One of the primary functions of RNA molecules, and try to stop the video and try to answer the question. This is very easy again, but let's try to start thinking about it. Transmit genetic information to offspring? Yeah, relatively, but maybe they could be a better one. Function and synthesis of proteins. So if you remember, we have replication, transcription, and translation, and the RNA is involved in these two. That the function is to produce protein. So this seems to be even better than this one. Make a copy of itself to ensure genetic continuity. This is replication, so this is wrong. Act as a pattern of blueprint to form DNA. That is wrong. And form genes of higher organisms. That is wrong. This will be DNA. So the primary function here, although these two are right, this is better one, so it will be B. So remember, RNA is involved in the transcription and translation, and this is the main function, one of the primary functions of RNA. Okay, this is an easy question. A shortage of phosphorus in the soil would make it especially difficult for a plant to manufacture. So in this one, you just have to remember which of these molecules use phosphorus. Yeah, and so we know that the answer will be DNA because they have a phosphate group in each one of the monomers, so they need a lot of phosphate. While in the other cases, they use or matchlate, so they don't use at all. So, for example, here in a protein, you have amino acids, and they have nitrogen, carbon, and they have hydrogen, and maybe some enzymes that we will study later. They might have some phosphorus, but it's not like a main component. So definitely proteins, it would not be the right answer. The cellulose, if you remember, they have a different type of glucose. And remember to study what is the difference between the alpha and the beta glucose for the test. But definitely cellulose is not the right one. So in the fatty acids, it's the same story. You use carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, but you need a phosphorus. And something very similar happened with sucrose. And you can look maybe what is the two sugars that form sucrose. So all of these ones are wrong. And if you have a plant that needs phosphorus, they will have problems in the DNA. Okay, so this is the answer. This one is a relatively easy one. It's just a modification of another one, but I make it a little bit more difficult for you. In this one, they ask you what are the components and nucleic acids. I think you can answer it really easy. Just stop the video and you can think about it. Okay, the answer here, it could be, you have to think about that the nucleic acids have three components. And definitely, nitrogenous bases is one of them. So these one are all correct. However, in these three, they only have two components, and definitely they have a phosphate. So this one is correct. These two are correct, but they miss one. So this is not correct because miss one. This one is correct, but exo sugar, if you remember, they both DNA and RNA, they have pentose sugars, and they have purines and pyrimidines that are nucleic the nucleotides, the bases, the nitrogenous bases, and they can be hexagons. Yeah, they can have a ring of 6 members, but this is not sugars. Yeah, so don't confuse this one. These are not sugars. And so this one, it will be wrong. This one has a nitrogenous base, have a pentose sugar. It doesn't say if it's a deoxy or a ribose. So this is correct, but again, it's missing something. So this is wrong. This one, this is right, this is wrong, and this is right, but this is wrong, and this one have all of them right. So the answer will be A. So remember, they have a phosphate group, they have a pentose sugar and a nitrogenous base, and the type of sugars could be uh, deoxyribose or ribose. And remember, as I said before, don't confuse these rings. 6 rings are this is not sugars, not sugar. So this is why one of them was not correct. Yeah, and this one is a pentose, is a 5-member plus 6-member, but this is again not sugars. So again, this is why this is correct. And just to finish this question, in living organisms, DNA exists as with the strand. So DNA in living organisms, and you can stop the video and think about it. And we know that living in living organisms, and this is very important, you can have not having living organisms single strand, so this gone. And DNA can take place in some forms, but not in a stereotypical way in triple helix, but not in living organisms. It's not stable enough. And here it will be A or B, and here they are talking about if it's parallel or anti-parallel. And remember, the DNA is a double helix that runs 5 prime, and here it will be to 3 prime. So one run in one direction and the other one run in other direction. So here the answer will be anti-parallel. So the answer is A. So remember, the double helix is in living organisms can only exist in a double helix, and it run anti-parallel. So one go in one direction and the other one run in the other direction. So the answer will be A.